At a professional conference, an encounter with a commanding, highly successful woman challenges the conventional definition of independence. She is a leader in her field, navigates the room with authority despite a physical disability. To an outside observer, her success appears to be a solo achievement, the quintessential lone wolf. However, she reveals a reality that subverts this narrative. She employs personal assistants 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. While modern culture equates independence with the absence of help, for her, these assistants are the very infrastructure of her autonomy. They are the tools that allow her to act upon the world rather than retreat from it. This individual triumph stands in stark contrast to the systemic barriers facing others. A brilliant colleague in a similar position recently declined a major promotion, not out of a lack of ambition, but due to a calculated necessity. Under the current legal framework, the increased salary would disqualify him from the government insurance that funds the essential care required for him to work. He could not afford the pay raise. This disincentive, baked into the law, exposes a reality often missed by stories of medical miracles or poster children. Disability is frequently not the impairment itself, but a world designed without certain bodies in mind, and a system that punishes those attempting to navigate it. Our societal understanding of disability has long been dominated by the medical model. This perspective locates the defect within the individual, treating the person as a biological anomaly to be fixed, cured, or rehabilitated to fit a normal world. It pathologizes the individual, viewing their existence through a lens of deficits, which inevitably fosters pity and a charity-based poster child framework. While effective for acute medical crises, this model fails to account for the lived reality of permanent impairment. In response, the social minority model, or the social model, shifts the focus from the individual to the environment. It posits that using a wheelchair is not the disability. The disability is the flight of stairs at the entrance of a building designed without a ramp. The problem lies in the concrete and the architecture created for a specific type of body. This perspective is empowering, suggesting the world is poorly designed rather than the person being broken. However, a tension exists between this environmental view and the undeniable reality of chronic pain or debilitating fatigue, which cannot be designed away. When government bureaucracies attempt to merge these models into a welfare safety net, they often create a therapeutic state that commodifies incapacity. Consider Elias, a worker in a wealthy Western nation who suffered a non-paralyzing but limiting back injury. Initially, the system appeared to function perfectly, providing him with a golden ticket of disability status, a monthly stipend, premium health care, and housing subsidies. A year later, feeling stronger and eager to regain his sense of purpose, Elias found a remote, part-time data entry job. As he calculated his potential budget, a cold dread set in. He realized that accepting the job would trigger a full review of his status. If the board deemed him not disabled enough, he would lose not only his stipend, but the specialized health care and housing subsidies that kept his life stable. Taking the job would cause his net income to drop by 40%. Elias faced a 40% tax for the privilege of working. He chose to stay on the couch, not out of laziness, but as a rational actor responding to a system that pays them to remain broken. This is the gilded cage, where a person's value to the state is tied to their ability to prove their own helplessness. This shift mirrors the transition from the theocratic state to the therapeutic state, a concept championed by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. In a theocratic state, idle or disruptive behavior was labeled a sin, managed by priests through moral judgment and social shame. In the modern therapeutic state, the priest is replaced by the doctor, and sin is replaced by sickness. While appearing more humane, this transition creates a paternalistic relationship where the state acts as a parent and the citizen becomes a permanent patient. By removing moral blame, the system inadvertently strips away agency and responsibility. The economic result is a structural division between producers and dependents. In a biological sense, a parasite consumes the energy of a host without producing its own. Zaz argued that policy can force capable adults into this role. For Elias, the state created an economic proposition: remain dependent to survive, or attempt to produce and face severe punishment. Over time, this destroys social competence. If an individual spends a decade proving they are too fragile to work, eventually they believe it, forgetting their own capabilities. This conflict between competence and accommodation extends into high-stakes professional environments. In a prominent architectural firm, a talented junior associate named Sarah requested accommodations for neurodivergence and anxiety. What began as reasonable requests for quiet workspaces evolved into demands to alter the fundamental standards of the profession. Sarah argued that strict deadlines and rigorous design critiques, essential for ensuring structural integrity, were exclusionary constructs. The firm's partners faced an agonizing dilemma: enforce the standards and risk a lawsuit for being ableist, or waive them and risk the lives of those who would occupy their buildings. This is a manifestation of anomy, a term coined by Emil Durkheim to describe the normlessness and psychological dizziness that occurs when boundaries are removed. Without shared performance metrics and the limit of a deadline, the work becomes a meaningless, anxious void. While meritocracy is often criticized as a lottery of birth or a weaponized tool of power, in safety-critical fields like surgery or engineering, there remains an objective floor. Gravity does not negotiate with inclusion. When scaled to a societal level, this medicalization of struggle creates a fiscal and demographic crisis. In the United States, Social Security officers report a shift from claims based on physical, verifiable damage, like a coal miner's lung disease, to mountains of claims from young people citing generalized anxiety, burnout, or ADHD. In some regions, 20% of the working-age population is now classified as functionally disabled due to mental health issues. This expansion of the symptom pool, a concept by Ethan Waters, suggests that cultures provide a menu of socially acceptable ways to express distress. If the state offers a monthly check for a diagnosis of burnout, the population unconsciously channels its struggles into that compensable shape. This trend is particularly dangerous for nations like Japan, which faces a shrinking workforce and a massive elderly population. When the treasury runs dry, the compassionate rhetoric of the social model vanishes. In Japan, disabled individuals are often forcibly moved at age 65 from generous disability systems to restrictive elderly care systems, regardless of their condition. The switch is a fiscal cliff, pure and simple. As the cost of disability pensions rises, doubling as a percentage of GDP in nations like the UK over 2 decades, the social fabric begins to tear. Producers feel resentful of the growing tax burden, while dependents feel entitled to support that barely keeps them above the poverty line. The system fails on its own terms, trapping people in a net that has become a web. Society has traded the pious citizen of the theocratic era for the compliant patient of the therapeutic era. The modern bad citizen is the one who questions their diagnosis or suggests that they need a purpose rather than a pill. We have prioritized a comfortable, well-managed dependency over the difficult path of growth and responsibility. True independence is not the refusal of help, but the retention of the power to define one's own goals. A wheelchair ramp is a tool that expands freedom. A welfare check that vanishes upon the first sign of effort is a cage. We must ask if, in our attempt to build a world that accommodates disability, we are instead manufacturing it.